Well, welcome to the No Neutral Moments podcast. I'm so excited about our newest guest, my friend Tracee Bentley, who is the, CEO of the Permian Strategic Partnership. We'll figure out what that is here a little bit later on. We'll probably get a little oil and gas heavy here today, which we need to. So welcome, Tracee. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's start off not with PSP, but you're a Colorado native. Is that right?
I am fifth generation.
Fifth generation. Give us a little Tracee Bentley, Colorado history before we get to how you end up in this place called Midland.
Sure. Well, my dad's side of the family are primarily farmers and ranchers.
All right.
So we grew up in the rural part of Colorado.
What does that mean, rural part of Colorado?
It means not
Denver?
Denver or Colorado Springs or Fort Collins or the Front Range.
Okay, all right.
We grew up in a place called Chaffee County, and it's almost dead central in the middle of the state.
Okay.
Kind of at the foot of the Collegiate Peaks.
Okay.
In Colorado.
All right.
Anyway, surrounded by farm and ranching, which comprises a lot of who I am today. And then my mom's side of the family they had some more traditional jobs, but both of my sides of the family are veteran and military family.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
Yes.
That probably is why you've had some interest in the America's Warrior Partnership and other things like that.
It is. My brother, I'm the oldest of three.
Okay.
I have a brother 3 years younger than me, and he is a pretty recently retired Navy fighter pilot.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
He flew FA-18 Super Hornets, and his call sign was Big Lou.
Big Lou. Big Lou.
And if you see a picture of my brother, you will fully understand the big part. He is incredibly fit and just really built. And then Lewis is my maiden name. Or last name.
So was your brother, did he fly with August Pfluger, or are they, how far apart are they?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would guess my brother might be a couple of years older than August.
Did he go to the Air Force Academy?
No.
Okay.
He went to the... he was in the Navy.
Oh, okay,
He went
that's
through
right.
Officer
Navy.
Candidate School.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. This is supposed to be about you. We ended up talking about your brother. Last question on your brother. Has he taken you up in a fighter plane?
No.
Man.
And I desperately wanted him to, and apparently that broke a whole bunch of Navy protocol. But I tried really hard.
Yeah, I told August, he said, will you endorse me for running for the House? And I said, if you'll give me a ride in a jet, and I'm still waiting.
You're still waiting?
Yeah, I'm still waiting.
Well, I won't let him forget about that.
So you're in Colorado College?
No, I went to, got both my degrees at Colorado State University.
Yeah, okay.
Go Rams.
Yes. I've heard that's the most, what's the right way to say this? It has been described as the most partying school in Colorado. Is that true?
It probably is true. I went there, however, because it's also the land grant university for the state, and so that was, more me.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I've never been a CU Boulder type of person.
Well, I understand that, and that's even less so now. But you said degrees. What degrees?
Yep. I have 2 degrees. They're both in communications. But my undergrad was really geared towards sports broadcasting.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a huge sports fanatic.
So what was the dream?
I wanted to be a lead anchor for ESPN.
So you must have been in sports as a high school student? And
Yes.
Okay.
I grew up playing every sport that was offered almost. I did basketball, volleyball, track, and softball.
Okay.
Which really, at the time, I grew up in a very small high school. There were, in fact, 36 in my graduating class.
You got me. I had 44.
Okay, you're the only person, who's even really gotten close to me that I've talked to. And so we didn't have a lot of sports offerings just by the size. And so I tried to play, with the exception of gymnastics. I'm admittedly not that flexible or talented there, but I tried to play all that we had.
So what's the sport trivia we would never know about you that you would tell us?
In one game, in one tournament, I broke the school record, and I scored 41 points in one game.
Wow. Okay.
Basketball. Yep.
In basketball. Did you play at Colorado State?
I did not.
You did not compete at Colorado State. Who's your favorite sports broadcaster? We're going to get to PSP stuff, but this is some great stuff.
Well, it's got to be Erin Andrews now for me.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just think the world of her.
Yeah, and her husband's a beast.
Yes.
Yeah, they are crazy. Have you ever done any sports broadcasting?
I didn't, while I was at Colorado State actually getting my master's, I did an internship in broadcasting for the football team. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I got to dabble in it, and I really enjoyed it.
I did color and play-by-play for a long time here for the high school teams, and that was so much fun. Best compliment I ever got was literally a blind lady sent me an email, and she said, "I can see the game when you talk." And I was like, okay, that matters.
That's huge.
Yeah, for a volunteer thing, that was really cool.
Absolutely.
So communications, what was the other degree?
Also communications. That one, however, was geared towards political.
Okay. All right.
And so I decided fairly early on in my bachelor's that I was going to have to start somewhere making no money, working 3 jobs, would get put wherever I wanted. And I said, I'd like to have a little more control over my own fate. So I decided to go get a second degree and really honed in on political communication, primarily speech writing.
Really? Mm-hmm. So who have you written speeches for?
Oh, my goodness. I have had a hand in 2 U.S. senators, a governor, pretty much my entire career, honestly, it's involved speech writing.
So tell me, how does this speech writing process go? I'm highly curious. I mean, I think I've written my own speeches. How do you wage your way through that writing for someone else? If you were advising some young person writing speeches, what were the key things?
Well, interestingly enough, I've found it much harder to write a speech for myself more than other people, which may be a little bit unique, but I love writing speeches for and about other people. And I do my best, of course, like we all do, when I know that person really well. And I really like to find out their favorite things, their strengths, who are they as a person, and then I can just dive down deep and talk about that person in a way that maybe they wouldn't talk about themselves.
What was one of your best lines that came out of one of your speeches that they actually used?
Oh, my goodness. Gosh, I got to dig deep. I don't know.
Did you ever get in trouble for something you wrote in a speech?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No. Now,
that's good.
I have been told, wow, that was direct, or you made a statement there, but I've never gotten in trouble.
So did you start doing that right out of college?
Yes.
Okay. First job was with?
I did a short time during college before I went to Colorado State in Washington, D.C., and I worked for a then U.S. Senator from Colorado. I went to go for a summer internship, and while I was there, he changed parties.
Oh, wow.
And his entire staff, all but like 1 or 2, left him. And he said, would you feel like sticking around? Because I need some staff. And I said, who else gets that opportunity?
Yeah.
So I stayed and I did night school at the University of Maryland while I was working in Washington, D.C.
You know, that's interesting that the staff all left because how many years ago was that?
This was in 1995.
Okay. Because so many of the staffers aren't even from the state that a person is from these days. Was it different back then? Or was there? Doesn't even seem to be much allegiance among staff sometimes these days.
I think it was a little bit different back then. But also, he had an unusually high amount of staffers that were actually from Colorado.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's, because when I'm there these days and I see people on staff, I'm like, where are you from? You from Texas? No, I'm actually from New Jersey, or whatever the case might be. Right. So that was probably your entree into politics? And what comes after all of that?
It was and it wasn't. I've always been into politics and government and debate. I've always just had a knack for those things. But that certainly was the big milestone in my career and in my future as far as politics goes. So then I came back, did a couple years in D.C. for him, came back, finished my degrees, and then I immediately left graduate school and went to work for the Colorado Farm Bureau.
Okay.
So now you can kind of see how some of my past is playing in. I had a lot of speech writing there, and I was the director of national affairs. So I covered, immigration and farm policy and all those things. And it was very political, working on the Farm Bill a lot.
Yeah. So you went from Colorado Farm Bureau. Next step.
Yes. So then I decided I wanted to do more than agriculture. I wanted to keep ag, but do more, like energy.
Right.
And other things that I cared about. And so I opened up my own consulting firm.
All right.
With a well-known lobbyist in Colorado at the time. And so we were bipartisan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took on a whole bunch of clients, and we're very successful at it.
So mainly Colorado clients?
Yes.
And you're representing them
clients.
for mainly Colorado interests, but you're also doing Washington, D.C. interests?
That's right.
Okay. How long did that last?
That was about 5 or 6 years. And then my partner, he was significantly older than me, decided that he wanted to retire and move because he had been at it a long time. And I said, I wished him well. And then about that time is when then Governor Hickenlooper got elected as governor. And he wanted to reorganize his energy office. Mm-hmm. And he wanted somebody who knew how to work both sides of the aisle, who also knew rural Colorado, which is where the energy was. And so he asked me if I would come reorganize his energy office. And so I did that.
Yeah.
And then he asked me to stay on as his, I was appointed as his legislative director and senior advisor on agriculture and energy.
Wow, you are on the rocket ship here. So you said bipartisan. Let's chase another topic for a minute. How different was bipartisanship then compared to where we are today, other than non-existing?
Night and day. Yeah. And I mean this sincerely. It makes me sad, and sometimes it's overwhelming when I think about how the Governor Hickenlooper is a Democrat, but yet he appointed a rural Republican, and he took pride in that. And it didn't matter what the letter was behind my name. And he appointed several Republicans to top positions. Republicans and Democrats worked incredibly closely. They had to together at the legislature. And at this time, still D.C., you saw some of this. And now I look at not only the Colorado Capitol, but really, you could almost say this about any Capitol. And it's really, really sad to me.
There's no conversations at all. I mean, I think that I was talking to someone this morning about in search of the radical middle was our discussion. And I'm like, what? You saw it in COVID. Just every issue seems to be so extreme. And the discussion we had this morning, we were talking about where's the fulcrum to this crazy teeter-totter that we're all about to die from going up and down on that can balance this. And, I don't know when it actually started. I have some ideas, but we've just sort of lost it in some respects. And people listening to this, some will say, well, you're going to compromise, or could we just have a conversation?
Right.
We're probably not going to be that far off. Right?
I mean,
energy especially, we can segue into that. I was on the BBC during my mayoral term talking about energy. And I remember I said, we're for all energy in this thing, but we just need to have a reasonable conversation. And no one's going to have a reasonable conversation. Everybody's an extremist in this deal. And my mayor phone at the time, when I got done with that broadcast, I started getting these emails from around the world saying, yes, thank you. We really would like to have a conversation. I will probably disagree with you on this or that, but it's just so hard. And I know you see that in energy right now.
It's so hard. And you're exactly right. Energy is one of those things that we all know deep down that we've got to have. I think we could all agree that we would prefer our energy come from a non-terrorist or hostile country.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that we want a clean environment.
Yeah.
And so to your point, we actually can have all of those things.
Right. And the U.S. is leading in that. Let's get to PSP, Permian Strategic Partnership. You get the call. You're going to come to this place. I'm sure you knew of Midland and Odessa and the Permian Basin and all that. So
I knew of it, yes.
Okay. All right. So you're going to make the journey down to the desert. Explain the PSP.
The Permian Strategic Partnership is 22 oil and gas companies who have come together to transform the Permian Basin so that it can continue to do what it does best, and that's provide safe and reliable energy to the world in this country. And we're going to be able to keep continuing to do that, but we've got to make some pretty major strides in our public education system, access to quality health care. workforce development opportunities, and infrastructure.
Do you see the PSP's calling card issues that you just listed as the same issues that face Louisiana, Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, Pennsylvania? Are these the same issues everywhere, or are these very Permian specific?
I think there are probably areas that share these, but it's nowhere to the urgency and to the scale.
Yeah.
Because the Permian, as you know,
Right.
we're going to, here very shortly in 2025, we're going to comprise 50% of America's energy. Right now we're about 40.
Of
50%.
the U.S. oil and gas production?
Yes.
Give me some numbers. Blow our minds with some Permian numbers.
So just the Permian Basin alone, which we at PSP count the Permian as 22 counties.
Texas and New Mexico.
Yep, 3 in New Mexico and 19 in West Texas. So just our area alone contributes $182 billion to the U.S. economy, and we account for about 730,000 jobs.
Wow. 730,000 jobs.
Yes.
That's crazy, because I told someone on another interview that we had over 250,000 people that were leaving every day to go to work in the oil and gas industry. But I may have only just been referring to Midland and Odessa practically. I mean, but when you say 750,000 is crazy.
Those numbers are mind-blowing. And nobody knows that, right? I mean, we don't even, the only reason I know it is because actually today, this afternoon, we're going to release our brand new economic report.
Oh, okay. Do you feel like, okay, let me figure out how to phrase this question. Someone told me the other day they referred to those of us out here in the Permian Basin as a mining colony that sometimes just gets totally taken advantage of by the elite, and I use that word not politically, but by the elite in the big cities and everybody east and west of us, that we're almost like this mining colony that just does this thing that nobody realizes, but you can't do everything you do without realizing what they do. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I hear it. You've heard it. Hollywood says it every day.
Completely.
Like it is their job. But I do feel like people, generally speaking, even those who maybe aren't hostile towards the industry, really do not appreciate what goes on here every day and who does it.
Right. How many people, let's just give people, I think I know the answer to this, but I know it's changed. For every rig, an oil rig that goes up and we're going to punch a hole in the ground, how many people are employed to make a rig happen from start to finish?
Oh my goodness. It's hundreds and hundreds of people. Yes.
It's not just 4 or 5 guys that go up there and put this hole in the ground.
No.
It's immense what people do.
It is immense.
Yeah. And the attack they come under for what they do. You mentioned just a minute ago, I don't want to get too political and we can change directions. How have we gotten to this place where the majority of America, I would say the majority, have no realization of the security of our energy source? I think the chairman of your company mentions this as the most secure energy source on the globe. It seems to me there's an enormous amount of naivete about that.
There absolutely is. And people are shocked to hear how much production is going on here and our importance on the world stage. I think it's unfortunate circumstances on why, but I think now people are starting to wake up, given what's going on geopolitically, and saying, wow, we don't want to be beholden to people who don't want to see us be successful, and in some cases even more than that. And so we, right here where you and I live, we have the ability to some degree to control that. Right,
because we have the capacity and everything. I know you've probably said this when you've testified, if you've testified at Congress and other places. Everything we're doing, quote unquote, environmentally in the United States is being completely scrubbed by China and Russia and all the other things they do. I mean, China's putting up a coal plant every month, probably.
Yep.
So all the efforts we're doing are just being snuffed out by other regimes. Is that a fair statement? Is that true?
I think that's a fair statement. And that's not to say, I think you and I would agree, that we must continue
Sure.
To develop technology, and this industry does that better than any other industry that I'm aware of, to continue to make sure we get even cleaner than we are. But to your point, I think we need to hold others accountable the way that we hold ourselves accountable.
How do you change things in Washington, D.C.? What needs to change in Washington, D.C.? And you can even say in Austin. What, from your perspective, what has to change?
I think the majority of people think like you and I do. I do not think the majority are the very far left or the very far right. I really think most people are like you and I. They want reasonable policies
Right.
that don't infringe on their rights.
Right.
And I think people need to exercise the power of their vote and put people in office who agree with us.
Do you think that, so when you look at the political landscape, you see the Trump drama, the Biden drama, and all the stuff in between, I get the sense there might be a new movement that might arise here very soon. Some people say that's pie in the sky. I just feel like there's a 30-something demographic out there that says, hang on a minute, we can do better than this. Because you're seeing Congress get older. You're not seeing Congress get younger. You're seeing it get more extreme. And there just has to be some way to get back to, again, this radical middle that was indicative of the Reagan Tip O'Neill world, where they had these conversations. Is there anything you're seeing that gives you hope in that direction in the energy discussion?
There is. I see a lot of hope. And you and I know that in Midland, Texas, the average age of our residents is 32 years old.
32, yeah.
Yes. And so talking to them about what would you like to see change here? And they've got a pretty healthy list. And I say, great. Besides talking about it, what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's, then that leads to, are you registered to vote? Well, no, I just never have. That is so important.
Yeah,
you need to register.
absolutely.
And then you need to go vote. And that's how change is going to happen.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who don't think their vote matters.
I encounter that all the time.
I hear it all the time. But I have to show them how few people actually vote, which means your vote actually does matter even more. Because the numbers are so small. What are the headwinds facing your industry, your members of the PSP? I think you said there's 22 members now.
22.
What are the headwinds that are front and center for them most of the time in the windshield as they move forward?
Yep. I will tell you the number one issue that keeps them up at night, these 22 CEOs of the companies, is workforce. How are we going to replace and build a workforce to keep doing what everybody is relying on us to do? And what we've found, it's several things, but we found people really like the Permian. They really do. But they don't want to send their kids to the lowest performing schools in the state.
Yeah.
They don't want to come out here and not have access to the best doctors, the best specialty care, pediatricians. They want to come out here and not know, we average a fatality per day on our roads.
On our roads, yeah.
Those things have got to change if we're ever going to keep the workforce that we have, and if we're going to recruit and retain new families who want to come in.
What has to happen in Austin for the Permian Basin to get its due comeuppance, to use an old country word?
Well, I will tell you there's good news on that front, by way of roads in particular. But Governor Abbott has been a friend to this area, and that's probably not even the right term. But the governor coined what needs to happen out here and his partnership and wanting to do that with us, the Permian Promise. And so,
when did this happen? I have no idea about this.
2 years ago.
Oh my, okay.
And to show us that he was serious, he designated $600 million just for Permian Basin roads. To our knowledge, that kind of investment in our infrastructure out here at one time has never been made before.
No.
So that was 2 years ago. Just this month, a couple of weeks ago, he designated another $1.4 billion just for Permian roads.
Now, when he designates, does that mean appropriated?
Yes, through his transportation commission and Chairman Bugg.
Chairman Bugg.
Yep.
Okay.
they invested heavily again, and they're not done by any stretch. But that's one example of, in the past 4 years, we are seeing real investments. Now, we've needed them for a very long time, but they're coming. I also think there's some significant investments in healthcare coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and I both know some of those. But I think Austin is now starting to understand, if we want this goose to keep laying those golden eggs, we've got to reinvest.
Well, in West Texas, someone put it well. They said West Texas is the provision of the food, the fuel, and the fiber.
That's exactly right.
The state of Texas, if not a large portion of the nation. You don't know what's out here. And when people are listening and they're hearing us talk about out here, I mean, the closest city of magnitude is Lubbock, maybe Abilene, but they're smaller than us. And then you got El Paso, who's nearly 6 hours away. And you don't get to the Metroplex for another 6 hours. You don't get to Houston so we're out. If we were surrounded by water, which at one time we're just an island out here that is impacting the world.
I like to tell people, just to kind of help paint a picture of what you're talking about. We are about the Permian Basin, 22 counties. We're about the size of the state of Minnesota, with less than 1 million people in it, whereas Minnesota has 5 million people, 186,000 square miles, with
huge.
a population less than 800,000.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
What do you see for the future of PSP? And I'm asking that question under the rubric of there's all kinds of organizations out there representing oil and gas. I sort of see you guys as almost racing ahead of some of those people in some regards. You don't have to throw anybody under the bus, but what do you see as the future of PSP?
Our future, we have just scratched the surface. So to date, we have spent $145 million of our own money in some projects that in our areas that we just talked about. But more impressively, we've leveraged our 145 into almost $1.2 billion in investments.
It's almost like you guys making the down payment, and then the state comes in and starts partnering.
The state, the state of Texas and New Mexico. We've got other businesses who partner with us, other foundations and philanthropic. I think it's a wonderful example of needing a catalyst and then inviting others to join.
Does the Permian Strategic Partnership remain a partnership of oil and gas?
Well, here in a few weeks.
See, I have no idea about what I'm asking. I'm just winging it here.
You didn't even know. Here in a few weeks, you're going, for the first time ever, 4.5 years, to see us expand outside of energy.
Okay. I'm like a savant.
Like, how did he know that?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yes.
That's really cool.
I can't wait to announce this. It will make perfect sense to you and to everybody else when you see who and why. But I think that speaks to the testament of the model and what we're doing, and even outside of PSP, of people are waking up to the importance of our basin. So
this will not air until that decision's made, that announcement is made. So can you say what the next step will be? Like, it won't air. You'll make this announcement, and this will be airing October, November probably. So where will we be? Can you say? In October? I mean, once you announce this, who's coming in? Who's being invited in? Oh, you want me to tell you? Yeah, I do. Okay, but so this isn't going to air until well after. Yeah, isn't that right? Yes, sir. Okay, see, you heard it from him. Okay. The University of Texas system and Texas Tech University system will be announcing as partners. Wow, okay. So is that an education route, or what route is that? It's all of the routes. That go with being a university. Yes. Yep. So I would say particularly, though, their partnership will come in the form of healthcare, education, and workforce. So why isn't A&M a part of this? Well, we certainly want them to be part of it, but to date... It's not like there's not some significant Aggies out here. Oh, believe me, I know. Yeah. I hear them all the time. Yeah.
Just to date, I think two things: the presence that UT has under the University of Texas Permian Basin.
Yeah.
We naturally do a lot of work with them, and the same goes for Tech. They have the stronghold when it comes to healthcare in particular in our
this region, absolutely.
and so that's why they're natural large partners.
If you were looking in the Tracee Bentley crystal ball, who would you think would be the next entree into the PSP world?
I would envision maybe a couple more academic partners. Yeah. I also think that there has from the beginning, but now that we've got some experience under our belt, there's significant interest in companies, tech companies, honestly. Some systems outside of healthcare systems.
Yep. When does the PSP become the SP, and you're going to have to change the P? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I had to think about that for a second. I don't know, but it's something that we discuss often, and I think the PSP is open for partners who share our vision, and who are not going to make PSP something that it's not.
Sure, yeah, that's
if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you have to be thinking about. In my consulting world, I run into a lot of companies that don't think about, okay, what if we remade the sandbox, so to speak? What's the new sandbox? And even though you may never get to that sandbox, okay, what could the sandbox be? Which usually makes you more focused on the sandbox you're in, but at the same time, you can kind of go, one time we talked about that. So, I mean, you just sort of see the energy here, great leaders that are becoming a part of this, great CEOs that are in the midst of this, the influence, the power, and it's time for a new sandbox. It seems like you guys are putting the borders up of a new sandbox.
I've never thought about it that way. I do think that having the addition of our two non-energy partners with the two universities is really going to help us take that next step and figure it out. But, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Here in the next 4 or 5 years, you could see several non-energy companies come on board.
Yeah. How is the PSP involving itself in politics? It's sort of a touchy area you probably have to deal with.
It is. You know, we will work with Democrats, Republicans, independents, and anybody else who wants to help further our mission.
Right.
So to that vein, we try very hard to stay out of lobbying.
Yep.
Because I have 22 companies who are very, very good at that. And if there's an issue that needs to be lobbied, they're really good at that, and they do that. We also, you'll see us, at least to date, we don't take positions on bonds, local bonds, or initiatives. And that's really because we feel like our 22 companies, we are invested in everybody's vote being heard and exercised. But that's not our space. There are plenty of other entities who do get involved in that. And by the way, they need to and they should.
Yeah. And you have publicly traded companies, so there's all kinds of things that come with that.
Yes.
How many of your companies are public and how many are private?
We have, out of 22, 2 private, and the rest are publicly traded.
2 private and the rest are public. And that's not by design. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Other private companies could get involved.
Oh, absolutely.
But you've started with the heavyweights in many regards. Is that fair?
I think that's fair to say. But I will say the 2 private companies that we have, they lend a perspective that is incredibly valuable because of how they think about things, how they think about workforce. And so the conversations have been more robust since we added our private companies.
It is. I wish there was a way. Well, let me back up. When I've been to D.C., my favorite people to talk to are the offices of Democrat House members and Democrat senators, because their staffers have no idea. They have no idea about the energy industry, and you can tell as soon as you start the conversation. They have a rubric they're working from that has been fed to them, and they've just believed. And And you go to the Republicans, and sometimes they just have talking points. And so this idea of educating, years ago before the PSP started, I got a call from the then mayor of Midland, Mayor Wes Perry, and there was a group of students coming here from Princeton who were grad students, and they wanted to investigate oil and gas. So he called me and he said, "Do you have anybody in your organization that would maybe take these students out and all this kind of stuff?" I said, "Well, let me make a few phone calls." And you would know some of these people. They're still here, very active in the community. And they took it was about 8 grad students from Princeton out on a rig and all this. And this was before the whole horizontal drilling. So it was right in the infancy of that. And I got to meet with those students at the end of their week here. And I said, took them to Katie's barbecue and said, "What'd you learn?" And every one of them said, "We had no idea. We had a perspective." And their perspective, quite literally, was oil spewing out of the ground all over everywhere and all over every fowl and animal, and debilitating everything. But I remember them saying, and you mentioned this, we didn't realize how many people had jobs because of a rig. We didn't realize what happens out there. How do we change? And we can wrap it up with this. How do we start this journey of changing the paradigm of perception?
Well, number one, we need to be unapologetic about what we do out here. And I think we need to get out of the mentality, just duck your head and let's just get the job done and ignore, because that hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And so we need to be more direct and assertive and relentless. And all we have to do is tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I think we oftentimes, out of crisis, industry and industry advocates, we've got a natural platform, and so we get to talk about our importance, and then it kind of dies off.
Yeah.
Right? And so a consistent voice educating people on the importance of what we do, I think it's going to be really, really important.
And it's just, shout out to Alex Epstein and the things that he's doing. Just the simplicity of helping someone understand. And I don't think this is anecdotal. I know it's not. The part oil and gas plays in the everyday functions of your life, people do not understand. They do not comprehend that there's very little you can do in a day that is not made possible because of the oil and gas industry. I mean, that's not hyperbole.
It's not. Everything that you and I have on right now is a product of oil and gas. But here's the other thing that I wish people could understand and really comprehend this. There are countries out there who would give anything to have even a quarter of the energy in oil and gas that we have. They can't heat their homes. They certainly can't cool their homes. They don't even have running water because they don't have access to energy. They would give anything, and they watch us have these uninformed debates about what we are and we are not, and they said, we want it. How can we get it? These people, are they nuts?
Yeah, all you have to do is try. I've spent so much time in Africa, and all you have to do is just realize, wow, I mean, they would desperately love to just be able to have their lights on. They would desperately love to just be able to enjoy life, but they can't because of the energy abundance that's not available to them that probably would be available to them if not limited by bureaucracies around the globe. So what are you excited about in the future with PSP? And then I have a final question.
Okay. Well, I am excited. We're just now, we planted some seeds 4.5 years ago, and now we're starting to see sprouts. And so it's so powerful to watch an idea that we had now actually taking form and whether it's investments or brick and mortar, that's amazing. And we've just gotten started. But I do, people ask me all the time, what's my favorite initiative today? And I really couldn't pick. But there's one that I see immense potential in, and that's actually one that you brought to our attention. And our goal, PSP's goal, is to make the Permian Basin the most veteran-friendly region in the country.
Yeah.
We have the jobs for them.
Sure do. We
have a community who embraces our military and our veterans. We've just got to fill a couple gaps that are really important to our veterans and their families, like healthcare and education and the things that we're working on. But I think here in the next maybe 5 years, you're going to see our community even more filled with veterans and their families. And that is exciting to me.
Is that through the partnership with America's Warrior Partnership?
It is.
Yeah, what a great organization. Jim Lorraine.
They're amazing.
And that whole organization.
They're amazing.
And just to think about the expansion of the PSP in the education realm, you could almost just begin to envision this entire propping up of the veteran community of finding a new way to do life and a new place to do life, and
exactly,
and just the excitement of a challenge out here and the things they would love about this environment, and just, you're right, you'd be hard pressed to find a more military loving region than right here. I mean, it's just everywhere.
Exactly.
And I mean, so many people that are veterans that are already in the industry, and they want that challenge and a place to move their families and to feel like they're going to walk up and down streets, and if somebody finds out you're a veteran, they're going to say, thanks for your service.
Thank you for your service.
If they see you in uniform, they're going to say, thank you for your service. And
you and I see that every day.
All the time.
Walking around.
All the time. It is insane in a good way of just how patriotic this place is.
It is.
And, I fear for the people who may not be patriotic enough sometimes in this community, so, because it could be dangerous. Last question. How's the golf game?
Oh, boy. Well, I continue to make minor improvements. In fact,
Okay.
I played yesterday.
All right.
And I had one of my better games. And
There you
interestingly enough, it was my putting that saved me yesterday.
Putting
I've never
stroke.
been able to say that before.
Well, a stroke with the putter counts as much as a driver.
I've always heard that. I don't think I believed it until yesterday. And
Absolutely.
I bet you I could go out today and not putt like that again, but yesterday was a good putting day.
I heard John Daly say 3 days ago, I was watching a reel actually, and he said, here's the problem with amateur golfers. The most important part of your game is 135 yards in. He said, you think it's the driver and you think it's how hard you hit a 5-iron. He said, 135 in. That's where you make a difference. So it's great. You just got to keep going, man. It's a 5-year journey.
Well, and yesterday I made a putt, a really long putt for me, and it happened to be the foursome behind us was coming up on us, and I was like, oh no, there's somebody watching. I prefer to putt when nobody's watching. And I sunk it, and it felt so good. But now they have this false impression that I'm really good.
Well, you know what? Anybody who has that impression of any golfer is misled, because every golfer is great one day and terrible the next. I had breakfast with this guy the other day. He shoots in the high 60s, low 70s, and he was in a tournament, and he said, the first day I shot like 76, and he goes, the second day I shot 92. And it's just, that's why I love the game.
I think that's why I love it too. It feeds my competitiveness.
It does. And Fred Couples said, he goes, the problem with amateur golfers is you think you're the only ones that hit bad shots. He said, all of us do. But a good shot by an amateur is the same as a good shot by a pro. It's a good shot. So celebrate those instead of the putts you miss.
I like it.
Yeah, man. It's just a great, great game. Well, Tracee, thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks so much.
It's going to be exciting to hear how people interact with this, and I hope we reach an audience that says, hey, I just want to know more about oil and gas. And even to say oil and gas, there's all these terms we use, petrochemicals or hydrocarbons or whatever it is. It's the energy it's the substance of the life we have, and we just have let the narrative get carried away, and we need to tell the truth. Like you said, it's not like we're trying to make up something. It's just the truth of energy is what it's all about.
The truth happens to be on our side.
It really does. It really does. Any last comments? You have any questions from me?
Thank you for
I'm
this
so
podcast.
glad you did this.
I'm so excited too. I can't wait to see the reaction.
Fingers crossed that your chairman is going to join us on this. That will be, I'll keep that a secret for now, although maybe it'll happen by the time this one airs. That will be fantastic.
Well, he'll be in town
he's already said yes.
after Labor Day.
So that could just be, and then I'm going to ask him a favor, We'll see if we can heavy up the guest list here.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
He's excited to do it.
Yeah, that's fun. Tracee, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good to see all of you. Take care.